Coming to paperback and e-readers from SJS Direct, Isis, House of Isis, the goddess next door takes on a hustling Hotep high priestess in Harlem in this Afrocentric Isis series adventure. Pre-order Isis, House of Isis on Amazon.com today. This Tuesday, I got an opportunity to watch Marvel Studios' Black Panther at the Magic Johnson Theater in Harlem. And after viewing the movie, I'm still not impressed by it. Yes, Marvel Studios has made a somewhat faithful adaptation of their Black Panther character, and Ryan Coogler makes efforts to capture the letter of the character. Unfortunately, he does not do a very good job of capturing the spirit of who the Black Panther is. And as I watched his film, I really had some serious issues with much of the imagery in this film and more so the storytelling in this film. Now, your Black Panther overall is just an average Marvel Studios film, and it makes efforts again to stay true to the letter of the character. Unfortunately, it falls far short in maintaining the spirit and integrity of the character due to many of the artistic and creative liberties taken with the material on screen. And many of these liberties really, again, hamper the film. Now, there are some standard issues with this film that relate to all Marvel Studios films, like the underdeveloped villain Killmonger and the complete collapse in the third act. Those are standard features of most of these Marvel Studios films, and Black Panther is no different in that aspect, in that the film falls completely apart in the third act, like many other Marvel Studios films. However, my biggest issue with Black Panther overall has to do with the story. Ryan Coogler's screenplay is extremely shallow and barely skims the surface of the source material. His story really features a lot of underdeveloped characters and a storyline that really is not really strongly cohesive. And the perspective he takes in his adaptation of Marvel Comics' Black Panther is one of the most troubling things as related to the story of this film and related to screenwriting overall. Instead of giving us a balanced and objective perspective of the Black Panther and his world, your Ryan Coogler in his screenplay, what he does is that he slants the material in such a way that it slants to the point where it's extremely gynocentric. And the storyline overall in the screenplay is so gynocentric that it would make a feminist like Alice Walker have her scratching her head, because here we have this story is supposed to be about this Black Panther, T'Challa. However, the main focus of the story overall shifts to the women of Wakanda and makes every effort to focus on them and make them in a positive light, but it puts the Black Panther character of T'Challa in the background. And that's quite troubling on a movie which is titled The Black Panther, because a Black Panther movie, as I see it, should be focused primarily on T'Challa as the main character, and the story should be focused on him as the center of the story. Unfortunately, your Ryan Coogler seems to want to focus on all of his story on the women of Wakanda and how they are important to T'Challa, to the point where T'Challa becomes a secondary character in his own story. And that perspective, again, is quite troubling, because it shows me that Ryan Coogler is coming from the perspective of an individual who comes from a single mother household, because a man who understands how to be objective would be focused on the main character of the story and not trying to elevate the woman to a super heroic status the way Coogler did with this Black Panther movie. Every female character, from the Black Panther's mother to Shuri to Okoye to the lady who was the spy, are all presented as infallible superwomen, but T'Challa is not presented in an equal and balanced light. And that really makes for a very unbalanced and uneven film, because when I look at Black Panther as a superhero movie as related to story, yes, they got the source material somewhat correct in letter, but they don't show us the Black Panther being this brilliant genius, this master tactician, or this brilliant critical thinker. No, all those skills are given to the women in the story, and that sucks all of the life out of the Black Panther movie, because instead of T'Challa being that primary focus that he should be and being that strong masculine male that he's supposed to be, he's then relegated to this beta male status inside of his own film. And in some ways, as I was watching this Black Panther movie, it was really reminding me of Alice Walker's The Color Purple, because in Alice Walker's The Color Purple, almost every black male is relegated to this negative role or placed in a role where they are seen as evil. But in this film, what's done is that every black male in this film is emasculated and made to appear weaker than they actually are, with the exception of M'Baku, because M'Baku is the only black man in this film to actually have some masculine energy and have and be masculine and act like a black man. That's why I have a real serious issue with this film, because again, it's coming from that gynocentric perspective and the perspective of an individual who comes from a single mother household, because anybody who comes from a household where they have interactions with men knows that men would not act the way many of the men act in this Black Panther movie. And the way T'Challa was acting was like an extremely soft male who came from a single mother household. Now, the film starts out, again, making efforts to emasculate T'Challa and make him appear weaker than he is in the comics. Now, in the comics, T'Challa is a strong alpha male, but in this film, he is relegated to a beta status, and we see that when he goes into action to save the spy. And what he does is he's taking out all these bad guys in some cut and pasted action scenes that I saw in the Marvel Studios Iron Man. And then here comes the female coming in to save him, and that really makes him appear to be emasculated. I mean, they tell him, "You froze," and again, that's really emasculating to the Black Panther, and it really does not help make that character stand to be as strong in the same way that Tony Stark and Steve Rogers were in Iron Man and Captain America. In those films, those heroes were allowed to have their moments of victory where they are shown to be strong and masculine, but Black Panther is shown to be emasculated in his first action scenes in his own movie. And as his ship flies over to Wakanda, we get females again making efforts to emasculate the prince. His sister and his mother, as he's coming off the ship, make efforts to make him appear to be inferior. And I really, again, had serious issues with that. Now, another issue I had with this film has to relate to a lot of the imagery, because in this Black Panther movie, there are some really troubling images in this film. And one of the images I had some real issues with was the presentation of the Ape Clan and M'Baku. Watching them pound their chests and act like gorillas, that was quite troubling for me. And watching those scenes where the Ape Clan makes the challenge to the Panther Clan, that really, it just didn't set right with me. And seeing the images of that guy with the plate lip also did not really set right with me. And I had real serious issues with those scenes because they had some borderline racism in them, thinly veiled, tried to be slipped by these producers at Disney. And that was something I had a real serious issue with as related to the imagery in this film. Now, some people will say that this is true to the comics and is extremely Afrocentric, but again, it just did seem somewhat troubling to me, along with all the gynocentrism in this film and the efforts to try to emasculate T'Challa in his own film. And in many of the action sequences, there were efforts also made to emasculate T'Challa, because I look at that scene in that Korean casino, and this was a scene where the Black Panther really should have been allowed to shine. He's sitting there again and before the scene, and they're making this plan on this mission to go get this Claw character, and they're supposed to be planning strategy, but instead of the Black Panther being shown as a critical thinker, the women are shown as the ones making most of the plans, and T'Challa is just going along. He's just the king, but the real power is the women in this film. And again, that really irked me. And then seeing them go into action as this whole fight scene is going on where they're trying to capture Claw, this also really troubled me, because T'Challa is not allowed to be a hero in his own film. He is not allowed to be shown having power in the film. It's Okoye who's allowed to have the power, Nakia who is allowed to have the power, but T'Challa is not allowed to have any sort of real power. All he does is meet with Everett Ross and to move the plot along, but he's not allowed to really have any power. And that's a real serious issue with me with Black Panther, is that yes, he's a Wakandan king, but he's not allowed to be a man in his own film. Because there's a difference between being a king and a man in this film. And what the writer Ryan Coogler didn't understand is that in order for him to be considered a strong king, he has to be a man first. And I think he doesn't understand the importance of people seeing a black man being a black man and expressing black masculinity, because there was next to no black masculinity in this film. This T'Challa was a really passive character. He let other people do his fighting for him, and he was not allowed to have a victory. I mean, in the casino scene with Claw, what happens is he gets away, and then later on in the story, he doesn't get a chance to bring Claw to justice, and that prevents him from really being seen as a strong hero. Instead of being seen as a strong hero, he has really been neutered. That's why I say this Black Panther really comes across like a kitten instead of a fierce panther. He looks really weak in this film, and the portrayals of black men really are weak in this film. And again, there was another troubling set of visuals, and those related to Oakland, California, in the early frames of the movie. And those I had also issue with, because all they show us is these spies, and they're showed as street hoods. And again, that's a stereotype that they slipped in under the radar regarding this Killmonger character's origin. And that also was troubling to me as well. They're saying that that all this stuff is going on in the community and that there needs to be something done about it. But I look at the perspective that they're coming from, and again, it's coming not from an objective perspective or even a black perspective. It's coming from, again, that gynocentric perspective, in that these guys are coming across as emotional regarding the situation, and then the father's approach to dealing with the situation comes from, again, a really dysfunctional approach regarding things. And now this Killmonger character, yes, Michael B. Jordan does give a great performance, and in some ways he kind of channels the Jack Nicholson performance from Batman '89 as the Joker, but they really don't give Michael B. Jordan enough material to work with. Again, this script is really shallow, and it really lacks depth, and it really lacks the layers that a good story should have. So everything is really surface in the story, and Killmonger, he's just there to be really just a jobber for the Black Panther to beat up on. and he's built up in such a way that it really there isn't much character development. He makes this grand plan. He then kills Claw and denies T'Challa his victory. Then challenges for the throne and tries to use psychological manipulation. Then kicks T'Challa down the waterfall where the things are, and that's where the movie starts to fall completely apart. After the second act, where T'Challa is kicked down the waterfall, what happens is the entire story of Black Panther completely collapses, and that's when the gynocentrism comes in and makes it basically like these single mothers who say, "My baby didn't hurt nobody. My baby's a good boy. T'Challa's a good boy," and they go on this quest to get this heart-shaped herb. Nakia goes and steals the last of the heart-shaped herb after King Killmonger decides he's going to burn all the herbs, and they go looking for to the Eighth Land, looking for help, and then they find T'Challa in an ex machina type situation, and this is where I have another real serious issue with the movie because they really make it where the T'Challa's family cheats. Now, T'Challa's family pulled a swerve on Killmonger the first time, his father pulled the swerve, and his mother then pulls the swerve. So this family, which is not very noble or honorable in the way I see it, and the way that they cheated was not within the Wakandan code. They again took the letter of the Wakandan code regarding this ritual combat, but they didn't stay true to the spirit of it, and they decided they wanted to bring T'Challa back because they were afraid of this Killmonger using Wakandan technology and Wakandan science to go wage war on the world. And this was really a dark commentary on African American men versus African men. And what they were trying to say with this Killmonger character and his emotional state is that if you take this black man and you give him an education, you give him skills, what he will do is he's going to go out and wage war on white people. Basically, the Killmonger character in the third act devolves into a white man's fear regarding black power in America. They fear that if a black man gains economic and political power in America, he will wage war on white people and make efforts to oppress white people. So there was a commentary made in between the lines of that Killmonger character, in that if this black male who comes to America and learns American culture and is raised as an African American, if he goes and he finds a way to get power, he's going to use that power to oppress white people. And the Ross character expresses that in later on in the story, and that shows the white fear regarding black power. And then they go to this neutered T'Challa in the hopes of stopping this Eric Killmonger from using his power to change the world to reflect what he believes to be the view of the world. And I have, again, a real problem with that because that's a backhanded insult at African American men and an African American male leadership to believe that if this black man were to gain economic and political power, that he would use it in such a way to go out and try to destroy the white supremacist world, and that efforts need to be made to stop him. And in the third act, that's what T'Challa tries to do in the film. He tries to stop Eric Killmonger from sending out these vibranium weapons and this Wakandan tech out into the world so that it can be used to wage this war on all these countries in the world that are controlled by white supremacy and so-called right things to make it a Wakandan empire. All of that really showed where Disney's vision was regarding Eric Killmonger, and it showed a lot of white fear. And Black Panther, in his neutered state, showed how he was going to be on the side of these people, and he was going to protect them because he was working with the CIA agent in order to preserve their order. Now, the climax of the film, again, is where everything really collapses as related to story, and that's where, again, we see more and more of this emasculation because the women are on the side of the Black Panther, and the men are shown, again, to be neutered and weak. And I look at one of the scenes with one of the second in command where he's Koye's boyfriend, and he's made to submit to her. And again, that's a troubling scene for me because you show that the black man has no power overall, and that the only black men who are allowed to have power are those like T'Challa, who are completely submissive to the white man and the black woman. And I look at this film, and again, they deny T'Challa a chance to have a real victory in this film. Again, the same way Tony Stark was allowed to have a victory in Iron Man when he had the fight in Gomera, and the same way Steve Rogers was allowed to have a victory in the fight that he had where he went to rescue Bucky from the Hydra base, and the same way that Thor was allowed to have a victory when he fought the Frost Giants. When it came down to those white male heroes, they were allowed to have their victories, but Black Panther was denied victory at every turn. In the Korea fight, he was denied victory because Claw got away, and then Killmonger goes and kills Claw, and that denies him the victory. And later on in the film, there's an anticlimactic battle between Black Panther and Killmonger, where Killmonger just gives up, and Black Panther again doesn't get the decisive win, and Everett Ross gets the victory because he stops all the ships with the Wakandan tech from flying out. So all throughout this movie, T'Challa is emasculated, and he's never allowed an opportunity to be a strong man the way a black man was allowed to be a man in old 1970s films like Shaft, like Black Caesar, and even recent films like Black Dynamite. In all those films, the black man was allowed to be a man. And I look at this film again, and it was really a real slap in the face to black manhood and black masculinity. Now, I know many black people see Black Panther as a major milestone because it is the first Marvel Studios film to feature an all black cast and have a black screenwriter and a black director. But as I look at this film, it is not a quality film. It's an okay film. It's one of the more middle of the road Marvel Studios films, and it is far better than the absolutely horrible Spider Man Homecoming that came out last year, but it is not a truly great film. Yes, there are some great action scenes, and there are some nice images of Afrofuturism and some of the Wakandan tech, but it just does not come together to become a complete, balanced, and cohesive film due to the way Ryan Coogler wrote the screenplay. The way he wrote the screenplay really tripped this film up and prevented it from being the masterpiece it should have been. Had he taken a bit more of an objective perspective regarding the characters, their characterization, and the development, he might have made a classic film. Unfortunately, the film falls very short due to the way he took the focus off T'Challa as the main character and put this heavy gynocentric slant on this film that literally almost was like watching a film about the women of Wakanda instead of watching a film regarding the Black Panther. Overall, Black Panther is a very average Marvel Studios film. It is quite entertaining and it has its moments. However, it is not one of the best Marvel Studios films, and it does not deserve any of all of this hype many people are giving it. When I take a look at this Black Panther film from an objective and critical perspective, there's a lot that is really troubling about the imagery, a lot that's troubling about the angles regarding this film, and a lot that's really uneven as related to the story. So it's worth a watch on a matinee or if you get it on DVD. But as I see it, a lot of people are really overhyping this film and really over hyping it and making it more than what it is. But it's just again another average Marvel Studios movie. If you'd like to try some of my African American fantasy fiction, like the ISIS series, the East Team series, and the Temptation of John Haynes, you may do so by clicking the link to Amazon.com in the description box. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe. Now available in paperback and ebook, The Man Who Rules the World. John Haynes must bring together men and gods to overcome a threat that seeks to destroy the planet. The Man Who Rules the World. Now available in paperback and e-readers everywhere.